Hello everyone, welcome to Steel Forest Welding and Forge. Today we have an interesting project for you. Today we're going to be making something called blacksmithing paste. Blacksmithing paste is a finish to use on raw steel after you're done working it. Now this particular material that we're going to be making has lots of different names. I've seen it called blacksmithing paste, I've seen it called tri-mix before. It has a lot of different names. The important thing is that this is a wonderful mixture to use on not only metal after you finish working it, it also works on leather, I'm told, for waterproofing. It works on wood for woodworking. It's a good all-around paste to have in the shop. Now I myself had never made it before, but we're going to do that today. Now some other finishes that are options for blacksmithing projects are things like beeswax. Now beeswax does put a nice finish on your products, very shiny, but kind of gives it a strange texture. If it's a material you're going to be handling, like a spoon for example, it might have kind of a strange feel as you're using it. Also, some people use boiled linseed oil. This stuff I've heard tends to kind of wear off. You have to reapply it. So this stuff is supposed to be kind of a good mix of the two. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to thank the folks at Dean Allen Studios for giving me this beeswax. They have their own bees there, so this is fresh from the hive, and that's what we're going to be using to make this mix today. So this mix is made out of the proportions of 2 parts beeswax, 2 parts turpentine, and then 1 part boiled linseed oil. So what that basically means is if you have half a cup of beeswax, which is I believe what I have here, you use half a cup of turpentine and then a 1/4 cup of boiled linseed oil. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this beeswax, we're going to cut into smaller pieces and melt it into a pot. Then we're going to add the same amount of turpentine once the beeswax melts and half the amount of boiled linseed oil. Then we're going to take this off the heat, pour it into some kind of container, and mix it as it cools. If you don't mix it as it cools, I've been told the layers tend to separate and you don't get a very even paste. And when you're done, you should have a semi-firm paste similar to Vaseline. Now, a few things on safety about this project. We are using turpentine. Turpentine is highly flammable. So whatever you are using to melt your beeswax, be sure it is not an open flame. I went and purchased this cheap little heating plate here, and just to be safe, we're going to be doing it in my welding area just in case something happens and there's a flash fire. There's nothing flammable in that area. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get that done. Hopefully we have a nice product. All right, here we go. So I'm going to be melting this in what I call a shot pot. If you don't have a shot pot, you're missing out. What is a shot pot, you ask? A shot pot is a pot that you can put anything in, melt it, make it as nasty as you want, and your wife is not going to get angry at you. So that's what this guy is. I also use it for rocket stove experimenting. So I've got some measurements here, roughly measured out. Boiled linseed oil to this line, turpentine to that line, and here's the beeswax. Now, I don't know these proportions exactly, but we're going to go ahead and just see what happens. I'm assuming as long as we get everything in the ballpark, we should be just fine. So let's go ahead and chop this guy up. Okay, now that I've made a total and complete mess, we'll go ahead and put this on the burner. Crank that guy up as high as it can go. Once that melts, we'll go ahead and add everything. While we're waiting for that to melt, we can go ahead and measure our other ingredients here. So turpentine is going to be going roughly to this line here. Next is our boiled linseed oil. And this is the portion that is smaller than the other two. Right there. Roughly half. All right, we'll come back once this stuff is melted. All right, as you can see, everything is melted. I know people usually say, boy, I wish you could smell this because it smells horrible, but this is exactly the opposite. This stuff smells wonderful. Very aromatic. So I've got this tin here that we're going to be pouring the mix in after we're done. If you haven't had a stroop waffle on top of your coffee yet in the morning, let me tell you folks, you're missing out. Buy these guys, you put one on top of your coffee cup, makes the inside caramel all melted. Oh, it's wonderful. Excuse me. All right, so we're going to go ahead, add our turpentine. I'll put on a pair of gloves just in case I spill something. I turn the heat down to low. Everything is still nice and melted. Excuse me. So there's our turpentine. Go and just mix that a little bit. Here is our broiled linseed oil. And now we're just going to go ahead and pour that in here. And I am going to open a window. Now we're just going to kind of stir this, keep an eye on it until it cools down. And hopefully, once it cools down, it's going to turn into a nice paste. All right, I'm just starting to kind of see the stuff starting to solidify here. Starting to kind of feel chunks here, kind of starting to cool down on the bottom. Yeah, look at that, that nice thick paste. That's what we're looking for. Almost feel like I'm making scrambled eggs. I'm just kind of scraping the top and the bottom. Trying to keep everything kind of well mixed. Oh, so glad I could get that on camera. Like in all my other videos, wouldn't be a normal video if I didn't screw something up at least once. Well, it's at a point now where I don't really see it globbing up anymore. It is warm, but not as warm as it was a few moments ago. I think what I'll do now is let it sit for just a little bit, then I'll come back, mix it, let it sit, come back, mix it, and we'll see how it turns out. All right, so I got tired of waiting for this stuff to cool down, so I just took it outside and let it sit in the cold air, and look at it now. Beautiful. That is a beautiful paste right there. So I think we're all done mixing this stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it cool here in the shop a little bit more, and then I think we'll try it out on something. All right, folks, so here's the plan. We're going to go ahead and test out this blacksmithing paste alongside some other common finishes you may find around the shop. We're going to take a piece of bar stock. I'm going to flatten a portion of it, drill a hole in it, and then do a decorative twist on this, and then brush it off with a heavy-duty brush. Then, once it cools, we're going to finish it off with this paint for one, this clear coat for another one, the blacksmithing paste, the wax, beeswax, boiled linseed oil, and then for a control, we're going to have a raw piece of stock that we're just going to brush off, and that is it. And then we're going to match each one of these to a certain number. So, for example, on this piece, we'll punch the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll keep those around as a way to kind of compare the different finishes in case I have a customer come in who may have a preference for a certain finish. So I'll go ahead and show the forging process for one of these pieces, and then we'll go ahead and test out the different finishes. We have a 3/8" line marked here for when we do the half-face blows to make a nice flat surface to drill a hole so we can put these different test pieces on a ring. Boy, let me tell you, days like this, I'm happy to be a blacksmith. It is only 17 degrees out today in lovely Wisconsin. And My garage is cold. Alright, so there's our line for our half-face blows. Nice little step. Get that edge up just a tad. So it looks kind of nice. Good. Put it back in the fire for a quick twist. One half, two halves. Good enough. Give it a quick brush off. And there we go. I'll go ahead and do the rest off camera. Go ahead and drill those holes for that ring, and then we'll demonstrate all of the different finishes. Okay, we've got all of our test pieces ready to go. They're all numbered, so we can identify them later. We're going to go ahead and take this guy away. That's number 6. That's our raw one. I'm not going to bother showing you guys the process for painting and the clear coating. All we're going to do is light the forge up, get these guys kind of hot, brush them off with the paste, beeswax, and linseed oil, respectively. Alright, remember, for this process, you don't need the part to be super hot. Look for that smoke off like that. Typically what you do, you rub this on until that smoke stops. You really want to get a nice finish. This actually may be a bit on the hot side, but we'll be fine. Ugh, little bits of that rag is coming off. Yuck. See how that is just now kind of starting to stop burning off? That's nice. Let's turn that around. Get the whole entire part. It's no longer smoking, it's barely smoking. That's good. You can't put too much on. If you put too much of the stuff on and it doesn't burn off, what happens, it gets kind of a greasy feel to it. There we go. Now I'm just going to put that somewhere to cool. Alright, so here's part number 4. Again, we don't need to have this in the forge for long time, just long enough to get hot. If your forge is fully heated up, it's only going to take a couple seconds. Put that in. Let's go ahead and do this in real time. Alright. So was that like a good 10 seconds? Nice thing about beeswax finish is you can just rub it right on. There, see how that's smoking off? Perfect. You can just rub it right on your parts. As it melts, it'll fit any small cracks that you have. Now, the one disadvantage to beeswax is that it stays sticky for a long time. So you have to kind of let it cool, either hang your part up or just find a clean spot to put it. So otherwise, it's going to pick up any gunk you may have laying around. Let's go ahead and turn that around. And as you can see, top part cooled off quite a bit. Well, it's still smoking off a little bit. So there we go. There's number 4, the beeswax finish. Let that cool down. Next is the boiled linseed oil. Now, linseed oil does have solvents in it. It is suspended in a solvent, so be very careful when you use it near an open flame. Pour this way over here. I think we'll be okay. Let that sit in there just for a few seconds. Go ahead and get a rag ready. That's probably all that we'll need. Get that out of the way. part out of the fire. Good. Smoking off. For some reason, that smell reminds me of Japanese food. Don't ask me why. I have actually never finished boiled linseed oil before, so this is going to be an interesting experiment for me as well. Let's just get a little bit more in that part. I might have had that part in that fire for about 2 seconds too long. A little bit too much of that is smoking off. Turn this around to the other side. Good. Getting all the parts good. Still smoking a little bit. Not too bad. Alright, we'll go ahead and put that somewhere to cool off as well. Once these cool down, we'll go ahead and look over everything. Alright, so let's take a look at all of our finished products. So here's the paint. As you can see, that has a decent finish to it. But again, it's paint. This doesn't exactly have the antiqued blacksmithing look to it. But if you want the paint look, there you go. Here's the clear coat look. You know, that does have, I can see, applications. It does look nice. Again, doesn't exactly have the antiquing blacksmithing look, but it does look nice. Here, number 3, now this is the blacksmithing paste. And for reference, when I applied this, I used an old cloth, and some of that fabric was coming off the cloth and sticking onto this part. So all I did was hit it with a small butane torch, knocked all that cloth right off. But here is that blacksmithing paste finish. Not gritty, not too gritty, not too shiny, not too dull, kind of a nice overall in-between finish. And one nice thing about the blacksmithing paste, the turpentine does 2 things. 1, it helps suspend the beeswax while it's cooling. 2, I have read, it helps with absorption into your metal. So, theoretically, this should last outside in the elements for quite a while. Here is number 4. This is just beeswax. Now, when you rub your fingers across this part versus this part, you do notice a difference. This does feel a little bit more grainy, but it still has kind of like that nice, dull luster look to it. So there's your beeswax finish. Now this, I have never done before. This is the boiled linseed oil. So I gotta say, I'm not a fan of this stuff, but one thing that's kind of neat about it is it seems to kind of leave all these high spots alone and settle very well down in these crevices. So you have almost 2 different colors in your finish, and I can definitely see an application for that. So if you're looking for that, there is your boiled linseed oil finish. Then last, here is our raw piece. This has nothing done to it but the wire brush. That is it. So compare that. Paint. Clear coat. That is the blacksmithing paste. That is the beeswax. And that is the boiled linseed oil. So there are all your different finishes, all in one nice spot. Okay everyone, so that's blacksmithing paste for you. I gotta say, I had a lot of fun making this video. I've never had a chance to put all these finishes side by side before and see how they all look. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this video as well. So before you guys go, a couple things. 1, keep a lookout on some other videos I'm making at this moment as well. I'm going to be making a video on how to cast your own aluminum chiller bars for TIG welding. There is the possibility I may be doing private work for companies with stainless steel. You'll need chiller bars for that to get nice color in your welds. I recently purchased a new Vulcan Migmax 215 wire feed welder, so keep an eye out for a very detailed walkthrough on that machine as well. And also, I believe as of this moment, I believe I just reached 300 subscriptions on this channel. So welcome to all the new people to this channel. Thank you everyone for your subscriptions and your thumbs ups and your comments. And speaking of which, please do so for this video as well. And I'm starting to see a lot more people interacting with me, asking me questions on my videos, and thank you for those. I love those. So, thanks again, folks. Please subscribe, please like, please share this video with your friends and family on your news feeds. I greatly appreciate it. And take it easy, guys. Have a great rest of your day.